This is my first whack at trying to make a tutorial. Be kind, please. So, somebody asked me on a group I'm a member of what a tent stitch is. And I've seen a lot of people explain it very well on YouTube. Ingeborg, for example, has an excellent explanation. But most of the examples of people actually stitching, when they do it, you can't see it very well. You can't see the way the needle moves. You can't see the way the thread goes. So I thought I'd do like a bigger example, so you can really see what the difference between tent stitch and half stitch is. Half stitch and tent stitch from the front, if you were to stitch stitch one thread over two threads, it would basically look the same. But from the back, it looks very different. And the reason that the thread paths are different is because of a quirk of even weave fabric, like this. Okay? You see how those little threads go, right? Up and down, up and down. The up are the warp threads, and side to side are the weft threads. Well, when you stitch one thread over one on an even weave fabric like this, you have this one little problem if you're doing like your regular half stitches, where your stitch will actually slip under a warp thread because of the way that half stitches are stitched. Stitching it in tent stitch is a way to prevent that little scoot where you have disappearing stitches, basically. So I'm gonna give this a shot, and don't mind the rustling you may hear. That's just Mom walking by. So I'm gonna show you this with, you know, a thing of embroidery floss, all 6 strands, and plastic canvas. Okay. Now, half stitches, most people stitch half stitches like this. They come in at the bottom square, like that, and up to the top. And back down to the bottom, and up to the top. And of course, you'll be stitching over your tail from the back. So basically from the bottom left square to the top right hole. From the bottom right hole to the top right hole. In a single 4-hole square. When you're stitching when you're right-handed stitching, because I'm a righty, from left to right. Then if you are right-handed stitcher from right to left, typically what will happen is you will stitch from the top right hole down to the bottom left hole. Top right, to bottom left. Top right to bottom left. And what that gives you on the back are these little vertical bars. And that's half stitching. And if you are stitching 1/1 on Aida or 1/2 on an even weave or a linen, you have no problems. But if you're stitching 1/1 with the traditional half stitches like this on an even weave, you get these little half stitches slipping under the vertical threads about like every other stitch. So to combat this, stitchers came up with the tent stitch. And here's the tent stitch. The way this works is it goes from a top right hole, if you are a right-handed stitcher, top right hole, down to the bottom left hole. And then you go up to the next top right and stitch it down into the bottom left. Top right into the bottom left. If you are a right-handed stitcher, stitching from left to right. I'm going to stitch a longer line of these so you can see just a little better on the back how the back looks. Doo-dee-doo. Da, 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 da. And the reason I'm using the plastic canvas is just because it's huge, so you can better see it. Because like your most 1/1 stitching is done on like, 28 count or smaller, so it's really hard to see. Okay, now that's right-handed, left to right, tent stitching. And if you want to move back, what you do is you go from the bottom left hole to the top right hole, bottom left hole to the top right hole, to stitch from, if you're a right-handed stitcher, to stitch from right to left. And when I flip this over, you will see the difference between the thread paths. Do, 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 do. And one more bottom left hole to top right hole. And there we go. Here's a line of 10 stitches. And flipping over, you see the difference here, right? You have this long slant as opposed to the vertical bars. And what that long slant does, and you can weave under it just like you do your vertical bars to end your thread. And what that long slant does is it will keep your little tent stitches, your little half stitches, from slipping under the vertical threads of your fabric about every other stitch. It's just a little trick that stitchers came up with so that we didn't wind up losing our minds from missing stitches. Like, I know I stitched that, where did it go? So I hope I did that well. I hope y'all liked it. Thank you. Take care. Bye.